Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Sharma.
Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. Today is 14th July 2023 and these are all the articles that we are going to see today. The first article is about a recent verdict by Allahabad High Court. What is it? What are the implications of this verdict? We'll see now. So the case was Kiran Rawat versus the state of UP. In this particular case, the Allahabad High Court, they declined the prayer by an interfaith couple in a live-in relationship from protection from police harassment. So this live-in couple, they were constantly harassed by the police because one of the live-in partner's family complained to the police, and because of that the police were continuously harassing the couple who were living together. So the couple approached the court for protection against police harassment, but in this case the Allahabad High Court declined this prayer. What was the reasoning given by Allahabad High Court? What are the precedents in this regard? What were the different judgments by the Supreme Court with respect to live-in relationship? We'll see in this particular discussion. The author of this article says that High Court's judgment, that is, they had declined the prayer to provide protection for this live-in couple. So, this judgment is unacceptable in constitutional sense. Why? Because conventional social morality has been given more weightage than the constitutional principles in this particular judgment. Generally, in the past, if we take current affairs, even in the Sabarimala case, constitutional morality was given precedence. But in this Allahabad High Court judgment, the judgment weighed more towards conventional social morality rather than constitutional principles. And while giving the judgment, the High Court discarded several Supreme Court judgments. But this is also wrong. Why? I will explain later with the help of an article from the Constitution. And High Court relied on personal laws for marriage, which is irrelevant to the case. So basically, the man in this interfaith couple, he is a Muslim. So while delivering this particular verdict, Allahabad High Court relied on personal laws for marriage. So it went into the Islamic personal law, and the High Court said that this particular live-in relationship itself is unacceptable within the realm of Islamic personal law. But this is not needed. Actually, constitutional morality should be given precedence than a personal law. So, this particular judgment is more orthodox in nature as opined by the author of this article. So, Article 141 says that the law laid down by the Supreme Court is binding on all courts in the country. If the Allahabad High Court is disregarding the judgment of the Supreme Court, then it is in contravention of Article 141 of the Constitution. So, whenever Supreme Court is adjudicating on the case, it weighs the merits and demerits of the case based on the Constitution. That is called constitutional adjudication. It is just saying whether a practice or a tradition is constitutional or unconstitutional. It is not encouraging or discouraging any social practice. It is merely applying the law of the land to a particular situation. So, the High Court need not opine whether the Supreme Court has encouraged or discouraged a practice. The court should have relied on applying the constitutional principles to the case at hand. That is the opinion of the author of this article. In 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐿 case, what happened was the Supreme Court decriminalized adultery as defined under Section 497 of the Indian Penal Code. Why adultery was decriminalized? Adultery is unfaithfulness to your partner. So it is a moral aberration. It is not a crime that should be policed by the state. So if you are unfaithful in your relationship, the police's business is not there in that. That is what is the reasoning given by the court. It is up to the aggrieved party to treat it as a civil case. Similarly, in 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 case, in which the section 377 was substantially struck down and it dealt with same-sex relations. We all know about section 377. So, in this case also, the Supreme Court didn't make a moral judgment on the rights or wrongs of a homosexual relationship. It just applied the constitution. That should be done in every case rather than passing a moral judgment. Why? Because as we have already seen, constitutional morality should be given more preference than social morality. Next, upholding personal liberty. So, we already said that there are some case laws with respect to live-in relationship. In Lata Singh case, the court directed police authorities throughout the country to see to it that any adult undergoing an intercaste or interreligious marriage is not harassed by anyone. That was the outcome of Lata Singh case. In 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐞 versus 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 case, the Supreme Court held that generally the mainstream view in the society is that sexual contact should happen between marital partners, a husband and a wife. But there is no statutory offense that takes place when adults willingly engage in sexual relations outside the marital setting. So this 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐞 versus 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥, in effect what it tries to say is that premarital sex is not illegal. It is not violating any law. The normal social position is that sex should happen after marriage, but premarital sex is not illegal. That was espoused during 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐞 versus 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 case. So, all in all, the author of this article is trying to say that instead of passing a moral judgment on the live-in couple, it should be more towards the side of constitutional morality of harassing these live-in couple. Okay, so that's it for this article. Next article is about free speech for scientists. Why this is in news? It is because there was a talk on Unlawful Activities Prevention Act which was scheduled to be held at Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. But Indian Institute of Science, they cancelled this talk. So, 500 scientists and academics, they wrote to the Indian Institute of Science criticizing this decision of cancelling that talk on Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So, what happened was, in the Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, IISER at Mohali, Punjab, two faculty members from IISER Mohali, they had also signed in this particular 500 scientists letter. So, the director of this institute, he gave a show cause notice to these two faculty members, saying what was the reasoning against you writing in this 500 scientists letter. Okay. So, this is the reason why the issue is widely discussed, and this is why the editorial has come on this topic. So, science and free speech. how should we discuss about this? So general perception is that scientists should do science. Why do they need to opine on social issues? That is the general argument that is kept by people who are against this particular talk on Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. But scientific research itself is a part of broader society. The research institutes, the scientists, they also belong to society, right? So any member of a society has the same constitutional right. A normal member of the society or a scientist or a research institution, they all have the constitutional right for free speech, and they have the right to participate in social discussions. That is one argument for free speech. And moreover, these institutions like IASC, IISER, they all rely on public support. They are run on taxpayers' money. So, if they are run on taxpayers' money, they have the added responsibility to educate, to express themselves on matters of public interest. If scientific researchers fail to stand up for justice, then they are abdicating this particular responsibility, because they themselves are funded on public money. So they have to take a stand on relevant public causes. That means they are standing up for the public. They are standing up for the free speech and the free discussions among the public. And science also cannot be restricted in silos. That is, you can't say that this is science, this is not science. You can't have strict boundaries around what constitutes science, and you can't ban that this part is not science, so you cannot opine on this part. But if you see in climate change is a scientific topic. But once you research on climate change, it can naturally flow into complex geopolitical issues about colonialism, historical responsibility, right? So, depending on that only, so scientific research is also located within the society. Based on the society's demands only, scientific research take place. There is a very good example of AI, right? So, today, artificial intelligence has come up, and there are a lot of ethical dilemmas that is thrown because of the usage of AI for various purposes. So this itself shows that science and society are interlinked, right? And at the same time, scientific and technological advances do not automatically lead to social progress. Say, for example, there was the prenatal sex determination scan, but it didn't lead to social progress. It led to female infanticide. So, development of technology does not automatically lead to social progress. They can even facilitate oppression or entrench inequality, right? The example that I gave. So, scientists also should involve themselves in decisions of how science is deployed, how a new scientific development is used. So there also scientists have a say, because the scientific discoveries should be used for social progress rather than social regression. If we leave out where the science is deployed to capitalists or the government, oftentimes science can be weaponized. Atom bombs are a very good example of that. Scientists should have say in what is the appropriate usage of that scientific discovery. It's not like scientists should be able to dictate where science is deployed. No, scientists should have some say in how science is deployed, right? And India has a rich and unique tradition of scientists who have engaged with social issues. For example, there was a scientist, Meghnad Saha. He was also a very good social commentator. Then we have All India People's Science Network. They have advocated that science be used for social benefit. So this culture of inquisitiveness, the culture of science is there in India. It is not something that is new. So by virtue of that, scientists should also be able to talk about social issues. Scientific issues are often related to broader political issues, right? Best example is AI. It is related to broader political issue. Why? Because AI can be used as a means for social control. AI can be used to disrupt elections. So science and society are very much interlinked, right? And society has benefited from the participation of scientists in these discussions. So this is the argument for why scientists and scientific institutions should promote free speech. Other than that, purely from a legal standpoint, the IAS Mohali, they invoked the Central Civil Service Conduct Rules. But there was a judgment by Allahabad High Court in 2015. It ruled that the Central Civil Service Conduct Rules, they have no application to a central university. It is for civil servants in a traditional sense, who are working as SDM, who are working as Tehsildar, who is working as a DSP, etc. Right? And also, Tripura High Court in 2020 ruled that even when these Central Civil Service Conduct Rules apply, they do not deprive citizens of their right to free speech, because right to free speech is a fundamental right. So the author of this article discusses on two aspects of free speech for scientists. One aspect is the moral aspect. Why free speech is needed? What are the moral arguments in favor of that? And another point of view is from a purely legal standpoint. So whatever the IAS Mohali did, it is wrong from moral standpoint as well as from a legal standpoint. That is the opinion of the author of this particular editorial piece. Now we'll go to the next article. The next article talks about the floods. But from prelims perspective, we should be knowing about the rivers that are frequently in news. So the first river that we are going to discuss about today is the Beas River. As we all know, the Beas River is one of the tributaries of the Indus River. And this Beas River is particularly the tributary of the Satluj River. And the source of Beas River is near Rohtang Pass, that is at the southern end of the Pir Panjal range in Himachal Pradesh. And this particular Beas River, it meets the Satluj River near the Harike Barrage. And the famous hill station Kulu is on Beas's tributary Parbati. And this Beas River is the only tributary, major tributary of Indus, which lies entirely within India. The other tributaries like Jhelum, Chenab, Satluj, etc., they are all transboundary rivers. Only Beas lies entirely within India. Another river that has been frequently in news is the Yamuna River because of the Delhi floods. So, major cities that are located on the banks of river Yamuna are Delhi, Agra and Mathura. And the right bank tributaries of this river Yamuna are from the Vindhyan range. So we have the Chambal River, which is the tributary of Yamuna, Sindh River, Betwa River and Ken River. They are all originating from the Vindhyan range. So this Chambal River, it has an important tributary called Banas, and this Banas originates from the Aravalis. Okay, so Banas, Kali Sindh, Parbhati, all join together to form the Chambal River. Okay, the famous coaching city Kota is located on the banks of river Chambal. Okay, then another river that is a tributary of Yamuna is Sindh River, and this Sindh River also originates from the Vindhyan range. Then we have the Betwa River, Ken-Betwa River linking project that has been frequently in news. So this Betwa River and this Ken River, both of them originate from the Vindhyan range. Another important tributary of the Betwa River is Dhasan. And the city of Jhansi is located on the banks of Betwa River. Okay, so this is about the Yamuna River. This is important from prelims perspective. Next article says that government curbs gold imports to check rising shipments through Indonesia. So, India and ASEAN have a free trade agreement, we all know. And ASEAN countries, among ASEAN, Indonesia is one of the members. Generally, there is a lot of gold that is imported into India because the demand for gold is very high in India, right? So, what happens is government sees it as a point of revenue. So, generally, heavy duty is applied, that is, taxes are applied on the import of gold into India. But if you are exporting an article, a merchandise from an FTA country, relatively very low duty is applied on that particular product. So, what has happened is the gold exporting destination, the countries which export gold into India might be other countries. Indonesia is not one such country, but Indonesia is a part of ASEAN with which India has an FTA. So, the importers of gold, the people who import gold into India, they are taking advantage of this FTA and they are routing gold via Indonesia. So, government has noticed this trend, that it sees this as a utilization of a loophole of FTA. So, it has restricted gold imports from Indonesia, right? Because India wants to curtail the current account deficit, right? Current account deficit is, we have balance of payments, and in balance of payments, we have current account and capital account. Under current account, we have goods and services trade. So, if India is importing something, it has to pay to the rest of the world or the country from which it is importing. So, there is an outflow of dollars. If India is importing more than what it exports, there will be more money going out of India than money coming into India. If that is the case, the current account deficit will widen. In order to restrict the widening of the current account deficit, India is restricting the import of non-essential items. Gold is non-essential item. You don't need it for day-to-day life, right? So, there has been restriction to reduce the current account deficit. That is why there is a higher duty on gold. But instead, the loophole of FTA is used and gold is being routed through Indonesia. So, through a notification, the Directorate General of Foreign Trade, they amended the import policy and they have made the gold jewelry and other gold articles under the restricted category. Okay, but we already have a CEPA, that is Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with UAE. In that, there is no a change, but generally there is a change in the import of gold articles. It has gone into restricted category. Next article, it talks about India's diabetes epidemic that is making its widespread TB problem worse. So, there are two problems. One is TB, that is tuberculosis. And we have DM, that is diabetes mellitus. So, these two combined together is a danger. So, it is making the situation worse. What is happening? What should be done about this? That is being discussed in this article. So, India has around 74.2 million people living with diabetes. And TB affects 2.6 million Indians every year. But there is very less knowledge about how these two diseases are interlinked. Okay. So, diabetes, that is DM, it increases the risk of developing respiratory infections. And diabetes is a major risk factor that increases the incidence, not only the incidence, but the severity of TB. And these two are co-infections. That is, one might lead to another and they will adversely affect the TB treatment. That is, among the people with TB, the prevalence of diabetes was found to be 25.3% and 24.5% of TB patients were pre-diabetic also. So this shows that these two diseases are combining forces, which is very dangerous, right? Why diabetes and TB are considered to be a deadly combo? Because diabetes, that is DM, diabetes mellitus, increases the risk of TB. So, if someone has diabetes, so for you to be declared healed of TB, the bacterial load, that is the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the bacterial load should go below a threshold level. It should be below this threshold level. But for TB patients who have diabetes, for the bacteria to go below this threshold, it takes longer time. And diabetes impairs cell-mediated immunity. So the body is not able to fight against TB. And there is also poor nutritional status. So what happens is there is reduced immunity. That is, a person with diabetes is immunocompromised, reduced immunity. Coupled with poor nutritional status, it may facilitate the invasion and establishment of TB. Already, the people with diabetes have compromised immune function and the risk of TB infection is high. And the severity of that TB is also high. That is, the TB patients who have diabetes, they have higher bacterial load. Also, there is a study which was conducted in 2016. It revealed that the TB diabetes group, they showed reduced lung functioning after TB treatment completion compared to TB non-DM group. That is, even if the tuberculosis is cured, if that person has had diabetes along with TB, they have a reduced lung functioning even after the TB is cured. Also, diabetes increases the likelihood of unfavorable TB treatment outcomes like treatment failure, relapse of TB, reinfection of TB, and even death. So, the people who have diabetes and TB, they suffer more severely and they must fight harder to survive. So that is why diabetes and TB combination is considered deadly. So what should be done in this regard? So there should be an integrated, patient-centered care for people suffering from both of these diseases. And there should be bidirectional screening of TB and diabetes. That is, if someone is diagnosed of TB, they also has to go through the diagnostic test to discover if they have diabetes. Also, if they have been discovered of diabetes, then they should also be tested for TB. So this is bidirectional testing so that we are detecting early. And apart from that, there should be patient education and patient support. Improve the nutritional status, because already we said that poor nutritional status will improve the chances of a diabetes patient getting TB. So the nutritional status also should be taken care of. And there should be intensified high quality care for tuberculosis, diabetes and other associated comorbidities. That is, there should be a holistic treatment that should be in place. And the health system should be scaled up. It should be made resilient. The treatment should be integrated. And there should be wide research literature so that the doctors know more about these comorbidities. The doctors would know more about when a person has TB and diabetes both, how their body responds. So these are all the measures that needs to be taken to tackle this twin burden. Okay, that's it for articles. We'll discuss 2 questions. The money multiplier in an economy increases with which of the following? Increase in cash reserve ratio? No. It restricts the money supply. So, money multiplier also gets restricted. Increase in statutory liquidity ratio? This also decreases the money supply. So, money multiplier will not increase. Increase in the population, that doesn't necessarily mean the money multiplier will also increase. Only if these people put their money in bank, then only the money multiplier will increase. So the answer is B, increase in the banking habit of the population. B is the correct answer. Next, the services area approach was implemented under the purview of A, integrated rural development program, B, lead bank scheme, C, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, D, National Skill Development Mission. Answer is lead bank scheme, wherein there will be a service area, and for that there will be a lead bank, say for example SBI, and they will cater to the service area. That is a simplified explanation. Okay, so that's it for today's discussion. Thank you, all the best. This is Indumati signing off. Follow us on all these social media platforms.